Are you tired of overpaying for your gold, silver, and platinum bullion coins and bars? Then visit sdbullion.com today. SD Bullion was recently named the 177th fastest growing company in the United States by Inc. magazine. This is because they offer the absolute lowest prices in the industry and follow up with over-the-top customer service. So what are you waiting for? Go to sdbullion.com today and join more than 60,000 happy investors that save money on every precious metals purchase they make.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's hard to believe, but it's now November 15th, 2017. Just a little more than a month and a half left to go to an unbelievable year. Well, first, housekeeping. Be part of the show. We value your voice. Email us kl@kerrylutz.com. We answer all. Hey, and don't forget our Twitter feed @Kerry Lutz. So, seeing interesting things happen coming out of the Congress now. You've got 2 separate tax bills. One is in the Senate, the other's in the House. Are they good for America, or are they just good for the GOP establishment, the wealthy? Well, you're going to have to be the judge of that. But Matt Nye is here right now. He is... Well, Matt, you are chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus, so welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Kerry. Appreciate you having me on.
So, tax plan, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, what's the deal?
Well, tax cuts are always good, right? So let's set the let's preface the conversation with that. I'm always for tax cuts, but in the context of the opportunity the Republicans have, where they have all 3 houses, they once again, they just really missed the mark. And so this is nibbling around the edges. This is not comprehensive tax reform. From what I've seen, they're doubling the standard exemption. But as usual, they're not actually addressing any of the underlying 70,000 pages of IRS regulations and code. So it's kind of like they claim they're reforming, quote unquote, reforming the tax code, but really all they're doing is making a larger part of the population exempt from those 70,000 pages as opposed to getting rid of some of the 70,000 pages. So it's the usual, political doublespeak that we get from the Republicans. So again, good that we're getting some tax cuts, but it's nowhere near what I would have expected under, Trump with his outsider mystique and appeal.
Well, you know what they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, Matt. Hey, some good news that I'm sure you didn't hear, but Richard Cordray, who is the dictatorial head of the ill-begotten, shouldn't exist Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, said he expects to step down before the end of the month. So there is some good news on the horizon here, right? Because all Trump has to do is not appoint anybody.
That is good. And I thought, wasn't there talk of disbanding that entire organization, the whole CFPB? I thought there was...
good luck there.
I thought I read somewhere they were talking about defunding that whole thing.
Well, that's all there was talk. But the next best thing is don't appoint anybody, fire all the senior leadership, and just let the inmates run the asylum. Don't have a leader, and the thing will be like a ship full of, like a vacant ship full of rats. And maybe that's the best we can hope for.
I agree with, again, that'd be better than the alternative. The problem, of course, is what happens when the Democrats sweep back into power after the Republicans blow it, and then, they just refill those seats. It was kind of the same argument they were making with Obamacare about, Tom Price is going to take care of that. He's going to take care of that. He's going to take care of that. Well, guess what? He's gone.
Yeah. So, he didn't last too long either, did he?
No, he did not. And that's exactly why it's so important that we have Congress do these things and have it, enshrined in legislation as opposed to depending on a particular individual within the administration.
Until it's disbanded, though, just ignoring it and taking every opportunity to undercut it is probably the best we can hope for.
It's true.
So
I'm with you.
let's be grateful for small favors here, Matt. So getting back to the tax debate, if you will. So the main cuts here really come down to business, both large business. They're getting a 20% tax rate. Publicly traded corporations, their effective tax rate is probably less. Don't expect GE to ever start paying taxes in your lifetime or mine. It's just they never have, they never will. But for the companies that can't finagle the tax code, like the GEs, the Apples, the Googles, the fake books, for those that can't, this is a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I wish they had stuck with 15%. Again, I always want more, but 20% is good. And I think that'll be a tremendous boon to the economy. So,
and then the pass-throughs. Look, if I'm a top earner in a small business and I have a pass-through entity, that means an LLC or a subchapter S corporation or a limited partnership, or I guess even a general partnership. I don't know how they're going to work it. But if I got that, my top rate goes down to 25% from 39.6%. I mean, that is a huge savings here, isn't it?
Absolutely. And especially, like you say, from a top earner capacity, if you're talking about somebody making $500,000 a year or something, absolutely. That's a big chunk of change.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really big bucks, and it really should set the economy on fire. So let's put aside the individual thing, which to me it looks like it does more harm than good for most individuals if you're at all productive, except for that pass-through tax rate, which is really quite astounding. For many years, individuals, companies, the highest paid are paying just in federal alone 39.6, and then they're paying state taxes. So I expect a wave of people becoming consultants all of a sudden. It's really going to be less, it's going to be a lot less people actually admitting to being employees, because then you get hammered. You can save 40% on your taxes just by being an S corp or a LLC. Who's gonna not do that?
Yeah, no, I agree, but I have to say I understand the logic and the fact that they're essentially viewing that state income tax deduction as subsidizing those high tax states. I mean, I agree with what they're trying to do, getting rid of that. It's just politically, I'm not sure that they're going to have the votes.
It's impossible.
To keep that in there.
Not going to happen. They're going to fold, but they might do a phase out. They might do a gradual reduction or phase it out over a period of years. But yeah, it's time for the low tax states to stop subsidizing the high tax states. It's really ridiculous. And what's the point of this?
Well, while you mention that, do you have any idea what the Senate's logic was with the delaying the decrease in the corporate tax rate for a year? That made no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, they didn't want to make it retroactive for this year. Okay. And then increase the deficit. I'm not justified. Don't get me wrong. I don't justify anything those people do. They're inherently corrupt. And if you only knew how corrupt they were, you'd have the pitchforks out. Hey, just as an aside here, Apple's overall tax rate was 26% in 2016. Wow. So for them, there's not going to be much of a savings because it'll be a 20% federal rate and a, whatever their California rate is. And they pay taxes in every state in the country. IBM had a 3.9% state and federal tax rate, 21% international tax rate. It's not going to matter to these big companies here, Matt, because the big companies have figured out how to game the system. It's going to be little companies and medium-sized ones that haven't gotten to the point where they can take advantage of these loopholes. Right.
No, I agree. I was actually surprised to hear you say that Apple paid 26%. I wouldn't think they would pay that much as large as they are. So.
Yeah, something happened that year. It was an accident.
They better get new consultants.
Here's an article that Caterpillar has the lowest effective tax rate of any publicly traded company. And this is for several years. This article's from back a couple of years ago, 2015. It could raise their taxes a little bit, but I guarantee you not going to happen. These guys know what they're doing. They had an effective tax rate of 5% in Switzerland. They just game the system. When you're an international player,
right,
you can do these
lots
things.
more options there. That's right. Well, and I know, the other real big deal with the corporate stuff is the depreciation, the immediate, the ability to immediately depreciate the full amount of the capital purchase. That's huge. That's a really, really big deal.
Yeah, totally. Because, and this is another reason why GE will never pay any taxes. Like GE, you probably know, Matt, is the largest lessor of aircraft in the world, of rail cars, and a whole bunch of other cap equipment that you would never even have heard of, like doctors' offices, like hospitals, all those machines. It doesn't matter whether they make them or not. And the reason they do it is depreciation. And, so now if they buy $10 billion worth of aircraft next year, guess what? They write off all 10 billion, and they probably buy 100 billion. And right now I don't know what the depreciation table is for a major airliner, but I'd say it's probably at least 12 years. It could be 20. And now, hey, all of that tax savings, and the beauty here is on their tax return, they get to depreciate the thing over a period of years. It's simply for tax purposes. Many of you aren't aware that corporations legally keep two sets of books. One is their profit that they report to shareholders, and the SEC and the IRS allow this. They're not doing anything illegal. The other set of books is their tax payments, their books, the way they keep their books for purposes of income tax. And
now, you just said something that makes me want to ask the question. You're saying that under the new proposal, they can obviously depreciate everything when they do the purchase in that year. But do they have to do that, or are you saying they can still stretch it out as well? Because I could see there might be a point of diminished returns.
I don't think they have to do it. I think, look, if they have a huge loss, then they'll be able to carry it back or carry it forward. It won't matter. But I think
that's true. You got the loss carry forward.
It's probably going to be optional. But everyone will do it anyway, and it will lead to a large capital equipment boom. But are you just taking future consumption and bringing it today? It's like automobile company rebates. All right. So you give the guy 20% off on this ultra luxe Ford F-150. So he buys it today, but he was going to buy it next year or the year after anyway. So all you did was take a future sale and made it a current sale. And you keep doing that and doing that. And eventually, you know what? The future, there is no more future because everything's been done. I don't know what the thing is. What about the death tax? Very few people ever pay it. And do we care about the people who do?
I think we should. I mean, to me, it's completely immoral. So I don't see how the government should be entitled to somebody's life's work as opposed to their own heirs. And I know again it affects a very small percentage, but that's it's just such an immoral proposition to say that the government should get to take everything.
You pay taxes on it, income taxes while you're alive. You paid capital gains when you sold it. You've managed to accumulate some wealth. And there's Uncle Sam when you kick the bucket with his hand out saying, not so fast. I want my share. And there's a gross inequity in it. But you are helping the rich because it doesn't apply to estates under $10 million.
Well, it's all part of this giant perverse inversion where basically the mentality is the government owns everything, right? It's entitled to everything that you ever produce, and it's a gift that we're getting to keep what we're keeping. The entire model that the USA was founded on has been completely flipped on its head now. And I've heard, you hear the leftists, talking heads on these TV shows, and they genuinely think that that's community property, right? How dare the entrepreneur be able to pass that on to their family members? That's property of the community.
As someone once said, Matt, you didn't build that, right?
It's true. And they believe it. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, hey, look, just because Trump needs an accomplishment, he needs a win in the legislature. I don't think it'll matter if he doesn't get one. I just think it'll be a lot better if he does. So this is a pretty good place. I don't think he'll back off. He will sense victory. He'll smell blood in the water. He'll be back in a year just like Reagan was, time for another cut, guys. Look how good the economy's doing, you morons.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping
sure.
You're right. I have such low expectations for the Republicans, the way they've handled things. So,
well,
I hope you're right.
Matt, there's a reason they're called the party of stupid. And it's interesting because I've got Keith Koffler coming up on the show. He's written a book about Steve Bannon. And Bannon's whole point is until we defeat and purge the party of the GOP elite, we'll never be able to win against the Democrats if we can't win amongst ourselves. I think it's really a valid point, don't you?
Yes, I agree completely. And that's what we try to do within the Republican Liberty Caucus is get the good guys that actually believe in individual rights and free markets into elected office. And it's much easier said than done.
For sure. But it's happening slowly but surely. So quickly, Rand Paul, assaulted by a neighbor, supposedly over a landscaping dispute. The neighbor just happens to be another Bernie supporter. He breaks 6 ribs, and they charge him with like the lowest assault charge available. What the heck's going on here?
I don't know. It really reeks of conspiracy theory. I cannot imagine, with that type of injury, that the guy wasn't charged with more. Yeah. And I sure hope there's some other, federal investigation or something else running in the background, because it just seems really off the way the whole thing was reported. Uh-huh. First it was no big deal. He didn't have any major injuries. And then, it seemed like every day, there was another broken rib and then, injury, a bruised lung and so on. So it's very disturbing. And it just seems like there's some sort of, black, even he seemed very tight-lipped about it.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, he hasn't said anything. I just want to read you the definition in Kentucky of second-degree assault. Person is guilty of second-degree assault when he, A, intentionally causes serious physical injury to another person. He intentionally causes it by means of a deadly weapon, which we don't know, or instrument, or he wantonly causes physical injury to another person. So this is assault in the second degree at the least, right, by that definition. And it's a very clear law. There's nothing really, left to the imagination here, or statutory construction. I don't think it falls under first-degree assault, which says manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, he wantonly engages in conduct which creates a grave risk of death to another and thereby causes physical injury to another person. No, I don't think so. But certainly second-degree assault. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, no, I think so. And I mean, think about it. They said he was mowing, and I don't know if he has a push mower or a riding lawnmower. But either way, to break that many ribs and do that kind of damage, I got to think the guy tackled him and or kicked him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Breaking rib. That's not something you would. You're not going to punch somebody and break a rib. You know.
I got.
So I got to think he was knocked to the ground and stomped.
Yeah, something there. Because I once was in a car accident and I got T-boned and I broke 3 ribs. And that car hit me at about 35, 40 miles an hour. I only broke 3, and it was painful as you could be. Luckily, didn't hit the lungs or anything. It was the lower ribs, but he had lung damage. I mean, this is aggravated assault for sure.
Yeah.
They don't really have an aggravated assault statute. But anyway, we wish Rand a speedy, quick recovery and diminished pain. Don't get hooked on opioids, Rand. It's not worth it. I think he won't. But Matt, so prediction here. Things going to get better, or your expectations so in the dumps that you think it's just going to get worse and worse?
I like to say I'm cautiously optimistic. If they get this tax reform, or I don't know if you just call that, the tax cuts done, I think that will at least, like you say, add some fuel to the fire in terms of, Trump achieving some of his agenda. I think last time we spoke, you were the very cynical one, and this time I'm the one that's being very cynical today. So maybe there's something in the air up here. But, I'll say cautiously optimistic for now. I mean, it just... like you say, the Republicans have such a poor track record with these things. It's hard to be optimistic.
They are stupid people, for sure. Stupid party, I should say. Individually, they might not be that dumb, but collectively, they just seem to shed IQ points the way a Labrador retriever sheds hair when he's inside your house, right? I mean, madness.
Nice analogy.
Madness. It's a madhouse. Hey, Matt, it's always fun having you on. Tell us where we find you for future reference, where people can connect with you on the internet.
Yes, hit us on the interwebs at rlc.org, or you can follow us on Twitter at rlibertycaucus, or you can follow me as well on Twitter at Matthew, Matthew, D as in Daniel, Nye, Nye.
All right, Matt. And look, we'll have a link to Matt's site on our site in the show notes of this interview, Financial Survival Network. Sign up for our newsletter. You'll get the webinar offer on there, too. We've also got a white paper on Bitcoin that John Rubino and myself have produced. I think it's highly instructive and informative. And take a look at the Twitter feed at Kerry Lutz. The Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. Matt, pleasure having you on as always, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Talk to you next time.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.